Hello everyone. Today, we slip quietly into a time when the sun set over a city that didn't truly go dark. A city where the night hummed with voices in forgotten tongues, and oil lamps flickered on dusty windowsills like fireflies trying to remember the stars. Welcome to Babylon. Not the Babylon of empires and conquests you might picture, but the one wrapped in the hush of twilight, where the cobblestones still held the warmth of the day, and life softly continued. Drop a comment with where you're watching from, and what time is it? It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, find your most comfortable position, and let the hum of history become your lullaby. You arrive in Babylon just after the sun has dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in dusty purples and golds. The last heat of the day rises from the baked clay bricks, dissipating slowly like a sigh. The great Euphrates flows to your right, calm but never silent. Its waters whisper against the banks, a sound older than kings. The city is not asleep, not yet. It waits, stretched and still, like an animal blinking in the dark. Torches sputter to life, one by one, until alleys glow with a soft amber haze. The smell of burning sesame oil clings to the air, earthy, thick and familiar. You pass under an archway, its cuneiform inscriptions lost to your tired eyes, and step onto the main thoroughfare. Merchants are closing their stalls, but not too quickly. There's always someone seeking a midnight pomegranate or a bolt of indigo cloth for a lover's gift. Children dart past, laughing. Their mothers call after them in voices that don't quite mean to be obeyed. A man, older, leans against a wooden post, chewing something bitter. He nods at you. No words are exchanged, but somehow you feel you've been recognized by the rhythm of the place. It's cooler now, finally, the kind of cool that seeps into your bones and tells them it's okay to rest. Somewhere nearby, a musician plucks a string instrument, the sound barely louder than your breath. You can't quite place the melody, but it feels ancient, familiar, almost like something your body remembers before your mind does. You follow the sound. Past mud brick houses with blue-tiled door frames, past clay jars stacked like quiet sentries, past a couple whispering in the shadows, their hands just barely brushing. The street narrows. You hear the splash of water in a courtyard. A donkey brays sleepily behind a shuttered stall. Above you, the ziggurat looms, not ominous, but constant. A mountain made by hands, tiered and solemn under the rising stars. You imagine the priests walking its steps even now, murmuring to their gods. Do they sleep, those gods? Or do they listen best when the world goes quiet? Babel, they called it, the gate of the gods. But tonight, it feels more like a cradle. And still the city lives, quietly, rhythmically, like the heartbeat of someone sleeping beside you. Somewhere, bread is being baked for the morning market. Somewhere else, a man counts silver pieces by lamplight, scratching numbers onto clay. You pause. There's a scent in the air now. Not smoke, not dust. Something sweet and elusive. Maybe myrrh. Maybe dates warming on a brazier. Or maybe the promise of sleep itself. Because here, in this city of shadows and flame, even the night is crafted. It is sculpted with sound and scent and silence. It is a presence, not an absence. You hear footsteps behind you, unhurried. You don't turn. They pass you, brushing your robe, and continue into the dark. No threat, just another wanderer of the night. Maybe you'll follow them, or maybe you'll sit for a while, here, by this low wall, and listen to the night tell its stories, in voices you don't need to understand. The moon has risen now, high and pale, watching everything. She has seen lovers and thieves, prayers and betrayals, births and goodbyes, all beneath these same constellations, and still she shines. The stars do not twinkle here, they burn steady and deliberate, like eyes, like promises. Like the steady breath of a city that refuses to sleep just because the sun has left. And you? You sit in the stillness, wrapped in a blanket of history and night air. Maybe this is what peace feels like, Maybe this is what the first page of a dream sounds like. Even in darkness, the market of Babylon breathes, not with the frenzy of midday, no shouting or sunburnt arms waving for attention, but with a kind of quiet invitation. As if the goods themselves are whispering to passers-by, "Come closer, touch me, taste what the day left behind." You walk along the narrow lane that branches off from the central plaza. The stalls are smaller here, shrouded in cloth dyed with indigo and ochre. Light flickers through them like fire trapped in gauze. A woman with tired eyes is still arranging figs in a woven basket. She notices you, nods once, and returns to her task. There's no need for urgency. No one hurries at night. You pass a tray of dried fish, their skins shimmering like scales of captured moonlight. The smell is strong, but strangely comforting. Further ahead, incense coils upward from a small brass burner. The seller, a boy no older than 12, lifts a stick of myrrh and holds it toward you. "For dreams," he says, barely audible. You don't speak, but he smiles anyway, as if he knows, as if everyone who visits the market at night is seeking something they can't quite name. It's not just goods for sale here. It's memories, wishes, pieces of the day that refuse to end. A potter turns his wheel slowly by torchlight, shaping something round and smooth with hands that look older than the city itself. His lips move, perhaps in a prayer, perhaps in a rhythm known only to his fingers. Beside him, a young man sings softly as he sells wine in small clay cups. His voice is warm and sad, like a lullaby meant for someone who never came home. You take a cup. The wine is sweet, with a bitter trace at the end, like most things in Babylon. As you walk, textures change beneath your sandals. Smooth stone, then compacted earth, then the crunch of something dry. You stop at a stall selling fabrics, linen, wool, and something coarser. The vendor holds up a shimmering length dyed deep blue. "Imported from Tyre," he whispers, though there's no one else nearby. "Only for night eyes." You touch it. It feels like water held in cloth, or like the thought of water when your mouth is dry. There's a rhythm here, subtle, like the beating of distant drums, not heard, felt. You pass an old woman reading palms beneath a frayed canopy. Her hands are stained with ink and oil, and she doesn't look up. "You've walked far," she says, "but not in distance." And then nothing more. Across from her, spices lay in shallow bowls. Turmeric like crushed gold, cumin like black sand, cinnamon curled like ancient scrolls. You lean in. Each scent is a story of lands you'll never see, ships that will never dock again, and hands that picked and ground them by moonlight. There's no need to buy. Just being here is part of the ritual. And still, the market grows quieter, not empty, just dimmer, sleepier, as if even the stalls are beginning to nod off. You find yourself at the edge of it now, where the lamps are fewer and the noise becomes a hush. One final vendor stands beneath a tree, selling small pastries filled with dates and honey. He gives you one without asking. "First time in the night market?" he says. You nod, though you're not sure why. "It's always your first time," he says, smiling, even when it's not. You bite into the pastry. It crumbles gently, the sweetness slow and warm. You're not sure if it's the food or the silence, or the way the light glows on the stone, but something in you exhales. Not just your breath. Something deeper. You realize then, this market wasn't made for gold or gain. It was made for what the day forgets. It holds everything too tender, too quiet, or too strange for daylight. Like dreams, like forgiveness, like the way some things only bloom when no one's watching. The pastry gone, the wine softened in your blood, you begin to walk again, not to leave, but to linger just a bit longer in the slow heartbeat of the market. And as you do, A breeze stirs the hanging fabrics. They move like ghosts with nowhere to go, or like memories just learning how to dance. You might think the city sleeps now, but that's only true if you're not the one lighting its fires, watching its gates, or baking its bread. For many, the night is not a time of rest. It is the beginning of duty, of silence filled with labor. You begin to notice them once the noise of the market fades. A woman walks past carrying a bucket of water, her steps sure and silent. Her tunic is damp, clinging to her back. She's been at this for hours. She doesn't look at you, not out of rudeness, but because she doesn't need to. Her world is narrow and practical, built of tasks, not conversation. She disappears into a side alley where smoke rises from a clay oven. Someone is baking flatbread, the kind that must be ready before first light. You smell the yeast, the ashes, the soft sourness of fermenting grain. A rhythm of hands slapping dough, of cloths being lifted and refolded, creates a metronome for the night. These are the ones who prepare the city to be beautiful when you wake up. And they are invisible. By design. Further on, you pass the stables. Low sounds, snorts, hooves shifting. A young man, barely more than a boy, is brushing down a mule by torchlight. The animal leans into his hand. They're both quiet. Companions in a duty no one else sees. He hums a tune under his breath. It's not for you. It's for the mule. Or maybe for himself. A spell to keep the sleep away. You pause by the temple walls, where two guards stand motionless. They carry short spears and wear cloaks against the chill. One of them glances at you, not with suspicion, but with that particular weariness of someone for whom nothing is new anymore. He's been here too many nights. You wonder how many stars he's counted, how many times he's thought about walking away, and never has. There are others too, the unseen ones. Inside the palace kitchens, the cooks are awake. Huge pots simmer in silence, watched by women with scarves over their hair and soot under their nails. The light is soft, but the heat is not. They stir, taste, adjust, preparing for nobles who won't rise for hours. One woman crushes herbs with a stone pestle, her face inches from the bowl. The scent rises. Garlic, coriander, maybe something bitter to balance the sweet. She doesn't smile. But her hands move with confidence, precision, grace born of repetition. In a corner, a boy washes pots larger than his torso. The water is black with grease, but he scrubs with focus. Not because someone is watching, but because this is his place. His rhythm. His name, in this moment, is the scrape of metal and the splash of water. Even the temple scribes don't sleep. You pass by a chamber where candlelight flickers behind a thin curtain. Inside, a man leans over a wax tablet, stylus in hand. He writes slowly, his lips moving with each word. Not because he forgets them, but because he honors them. He doesn't look tired. He looks still, as though sleep would be too loud a guest to invite. He is copying prayers, or perhaps recording the dreams of someone who paid to have them interpreted. Each symbol etched into wax is a secret made permanent, a thought saved from disappearing. The room smells of tallow, dust, and quiet reverence. Then there are the sweepers, old men with bent backs and brooms made of reeds. You hear them before you see them, the soft swish of straw on stone. One sweeps the path just ahead of you, his pace slow but constant. He doesn't clear every leaf or speck of dirt, just enough, just what's needed. You greet him. He doesn't answer, just keeps sweeping, like time itself, forward, unhurried, indifferent. And finally, the women who carry torches. You don't know their names or roles. They walk the alleys at even intervals, leaving fire behind them in mounted bowls. Their faces are shadowed. They could be priestesses. They could be slaves. They could be both. They are the keepers of the city's breath. With each flame lit, the night sighs, not of fear, but of presence. You begin to realize, For every lamp you pass, someone lit it. For every clean stone beneath your feet, someone bent to scrub it. For every moment you feel safe, someone stood in the cold to ensure it. This is not a city that sleeps. This is a city that shifts from voice to breath, from step to silence. And those who work the night, they are its heartbeat. Slow, steady, unseen, but essential. As you continue your walk, you carry their rhythms with you. A breath deeper, a step slower. A growing understanding that the night belongs not just to rest, but to reverence, for those who labor when the world dreams. If you listen closely, past the hush of the workers and the quiet churn of river water, there is laughter, low, unhurried, muffled by walls. Not the raucous laughter of daytime deals, but something older, intimate, like a secret being shared between sips. You follow it through a narrow path, between houses so close the walls seem to breathe against each other. The air here is thick with something else, not incense, not smoke, but a scent that carries memory. Fermented grain, sour fruit, traces of oil and dust. And then, behind a draped curtain, you find it. A taberna, or maybe something more than that. A place between worlds, between the rituals of the temple and the bargains of the market, between loneliness and song. You push the curtain aside. No one looks up. That is the rule. No questions. No expectations. You are welcome if you do not disturb the story already being told by the room itself. It's dim. Oil lamps in niches cast shadows that move like old thoughts. A low table, uneven and stained. A woman leans over it, laughing at something whispered into her ear. Her head is wrapped in cloth the colour of faded wine. Her laughter stops, but the smile stays, like an ember. You sit near the edge. A man brings you a drink without asking. It's dark, cloudy, served in a chipped clay cup. You sip. It bites, then it warms, then it softens. That's how stories begin here. Two men argue in hushed tones near the back, not with anger, but with memory. They speak of a flood years ago, of a child lost and found, of a wall that stood when others fell. Their voices rise, then settle again, like the tide. A small harp sits in the lap of a girl no older than 15. She plucks the strings idly, not looking at anyone. Her song is not for the room. It's for whatever dream she's chasing behind her eyelids. Someone coughs. Someone else prays under their breath. A dice game begins in the corner, bones rattling like distant thunder. The barkeeper is a woman with arms like stone columns and eyes like ash. She watches everything. She misses nothing. Her hands move constantly, wiping, pouring, counting. You wonder how many names she knows, how many secrets have landed on her counter, how many stories she's heard begin and end in the space of a single bowl of lentil stew. You ask for food. She nods, brings a plate, flatbread still warm, olives, something pickled. No words, just nourishment. It is somehow the best meal you've had. The walls are lined with niches holding clay figurines, tiny gods, or ancestors, or perhaps lovers. You don't ask. You only wonder why they seem to face inward, as if listening. The man beside you, older, with salt in his beard and silence in his eyes, leans close. This place, he says, was here before the tower fell. You don't know what he means, but you nod, because in this light, with this cup, and these stories brushing your skin like dust on stone, it feels true. This place has no name, or maybe it has too many. In a far corner, a woman sings, not loud, not in a language you know. The room doesn't quiet. It leans in. Her voice is rough and tender, like cloth worn thin from being held too many times. She sings to someone who isn't here, or perhaps to someone who left long ago. No one claps. When she stops, The silence that follows is its own kind of applause. You sit there longer than you planned. Time doesn't matter in places like this. There are no windows, no clocks, just breath, just presence, just the sound of another cup being filled, another story beginning. You leave quietly. No one says goodbye. That is not the rule. You step back into the street, the night air suddenly clearer, like waking from a deep sleep. The stars blink above you. The sounds of the city return, muted, reverent. But something has changed. Not in the world, in you. You carry the warmth of oil lamps behind your eyes, the echo of a harp string under your ribs, the scent of dates and dust in your breath, and the feeling that perhaps every city has places like this, where the night isn't dark, but deep, where people come not to forget, but to be remembered, if only for a moment, a sip, a word, a glance. That's all it takes to feel human again. Not all women in Babylon waited for morning to begin their day. Some lived by twilight, not because they chose it, always, but because the world had carved their names into the dusk. Names whispered rather than spoken, roles more sensed than seen. And so, as you walk further into the heart of the city, you begin to notice them. They do not call to you. They do not need to. Their presence is stitched into the very air of night. One stands beneath a stone arch, her silhouette calm, like a statue that forgot how to be still. She wears a veil, not to hide, but to frame. Her coal-lined eyes find yours for a moment, then drift away like mist. Not rejection, not invitation, just knowing. You keep walking. In the quarter near the temple, the streets are cleaner. The air smells of frankincense and water lilies. Here, the women who walk at night do so not with caution, but with purpose. Some are sacred. Daughters of the gods, they say. Priestesses who serve Ishtar, not only through prayer, but through presence. They do not belong to anyone. Their role is ritual, reverent, powerful. You see one stepping out of the temple gates, her robe the color of twilight. She is barefoot. Her pace is measured, as if every step honors something you cannot see. A man steps aside to let her pass, not out of fear, but respect, or maybe awe. Elsewhere, in quieter corners, the roles blur. Some women wait in doorways, not for gods, not for ceremony, just for warmth, for coin, for eyes that look and hands that reach, even if briefly. You pass one such doorway. A voice calls softly, not to sell, but to ask. "Are you lost?" she says. And for a second, you're unsure how to answer, because maybe you are. Her face is gentle, not painted, just tired. The kind of tired that's learned to smile anyway. You don't stop, but you nod. And in that nod is an entire conversation neither of you needs to finish. These women, sacred or not, know the city better than its map makers. They know which streets echo footsteps louder, which stones are warmest under bare soles, which guards can be bribed, which ones don't need to be. They know the secrets of men and the silence of gods, and they carry it all in their eyes. Eyes that have seen births in alleyways and deaths behind silk curtains. Eyes that have watched men kneel, not from devotion, but from ache. Eyes that have learned the difference between desire and need, between touch and tenderness. A story reaches you through the murmurs of the street, of a woman who once served in the temple, then left, only to become more revered outside it. They say she could read your future by watching how you walked. That she'd light candles for your dead and never ask for payment, unless you had none, in which case she'd take your sorrow and turn it into a song. She vanished, they say. Or maybe she simply walked into the desert one night and became part of the wind. Babylon keeps her name, but not her face. You sit by a well. A group of women gathers nearby, their laughter low and layered. One braids another's hair. Another sips from a jar of pomegranate wine. They speak in a rhythm that excludes you, but not cruelly. This is their moment, their time. You watch, quietly, and feel something loosen inside you, because they are not waiting, not suffering, not selling. They are simply being, in the night, in their bodies, in their city. And that too is power. The night deepens. A few of the women disappear into homes, others lean into shadows. Some begin the slow walk toward the river, where the fishermen dock early and coin changes hands in silence. You see the sacred and the profane merge like oil and water, separate but part of the same surface. And you understand, to walk the night as a woman in Babylon is to carry the weight of many stories, some chosen, some inherited, all shaped by flame and whisper. There is no one kind of woman here, only those who have learned how to live where light hesitates. You rise, leaving the well behind. The moon is higher now, casting silver over rooftops and shoulders and shawls. Somewhere, laughter rises again, and for a moment, it sounds like freedom. They rise above everything, layered like dreams, reaching towards stars that never blink. The ziggurats of Babylon. Mountains not made by gods, but for them. At night, they are quieter than temples, quieter than prayer. But their silence is not emptiness. It's presence. A presence that watches, that waits, that listens to the city breathe below. You walk toward one now. Its base looms like a ship grounded on the earth, its brick surface warm even after sunset. Each layer stacked with precision, each level an offering of labor to something unseen. The priests are inside, or above, or somewhere in between. You will not see them, not directly, but you feel them. At the entrance, 2 torches burn low, their light hardly reaching past the threshold. You pause, not out of fear, but reverence. This is not a place you enter lightly, even in dreams. A sound rises from within. Not a chant, not speech, just breath. Like the sigh of the wind moving through memory, you step closer, not inside, just close enough to see the outline of stairs climbing along the outer edge. They spiral upward, vanishing into shadow. A single figure moves there, slowly, clad in a robe the color of old parchment, carrying a small bowl that glows faintly. You wonder, is it oil, water, ashes, a soul? You'll never know, and that's the point. The higher levels are for rituals that no longer speak in words. A priest walks the perimeter, his bare feet touching each brick as if blessing it with weight. Behind him, a young acolyte carries incense, the smoke trailing like a thought never spoken aloud. They walk in silence, always silence, because the gods, especially at night, don't want your noise. They want your presence, and presence is loudest when you are still. On the middle level, a small chamber holds offerings from the day, bowls of grain, fragments of obsidian, a ring once owned, now surrendered. Nothing grand, just sincere. You wonder how many of these objects were left not for belief, but for hope. The line between the two is thinner in the dark. A scribe kneels here. He is not writing. He is simply touching the floor, his fingers tracing old carvings, worn nearly smooth. He murmurs something, too soft to catch, perhaps a name, perhaps forgiveness. The room smells of dust and frankincense, and something older, like wet stone, or time. Climbing further, the wind picks up. You feel it tug at your clothes, not unkindly, just enough to remind you how small you are, and how vast the sky has always been. From the top of the ziggurat, the stars are close, closer than they should be. You feel their weight, their watchfulness. There is a bowl here, simple, wide, filled with water. The priest kneels before it. He is alone now. He looks down, and the stars look back, reflected in the surface, shimmering. No one speaks. This is how the gods are read. Not in books, not in thunder, but in ripples. one gust of wind, and the sky shatters into silver fragments. One moment later, it is whole again. Perhaps that is the message, that everything, broken or whole, still reflects the divine. The priest pours oil into the bowl. It swirls, golden on the surface, like a thought being remembered. He lights it. The flame is small, barely a whisper. But from here, it can be seen by the entire city. Not as a command, as a promise. You step back, leaving the ziggurat behind. Its outline sharp against the sky, like a ladder etched in shadow. Below, the city continues. Merchants finishing their day, lovers sharing secrets, workers rubbing sleep from their eyes. But above, the flame still burns. And somewhere, the gods are listening, even if they do not answer. The sky above Babylon was not just a ceiling. It was a scroll. And every night, it was rewritten. Not by hands, but by fire. Not by ink, but by stars. You lie on a rooftop now. The clay is cool beneath your back, still faintly warm at its edges. The air is dry, scented with dust and faint oil. The city murmurs far below, a soft percussion of footsteps, the occasional creak of wood, and the distant call of someone returning too late. But above you, silence. And then the stars begin to speak, not in words, not in symbols, in rhythm. The Babylonians listened. They watched and waited, not with wonder, but with discipline. Astrology here wasn't wishful thinking. It was architecture in the sky, a sacred bureaucracy of the cosmos. You picture the astrologer in his chamber, a high room near the temple, open to the heavens. He wears a robe marked with geometric lines, and his eyes are sharp, not dreamy. He notes the position of Mars, the angle of Venus, the glow of the moon's edge. Each a message, each an omen, not divine in the way we imagine, but direct, practical. This planet rises early, expect movement on the northern road. That star flickers, prepare the river gates. The constellations were not distant here. They were instruments of administration, woven into the pulse of city life. You glance skyward again. The patterns are strange to you. No Orion, no Big Dipper. Instead, the plough, the fish, the old man, the scorpion's jaw. Shapes born from agriculture and myth. Each constellation tied not just to stories, but to seasons. Planting, flooding, death. You remember the tablets now, those carved pieces of clay listing star charts and eclipses. Not as curiosities, but as records. Babylon didn't wonder if the heavens had meaning. They knew. The question was only, what do they want us to understand tonight? A soft breeze brushes your skin, the kind that makes you feel like the sky has leaned closer. You imagine the astrologer walking among the rooftops, murmuring to himself, not reading the stars, but translating them, like a librarian of the divine. He stops at a pool of still water, peers into it. The stars tremble on its surface, not from wind, but from thought. He's not just seeking events, he's seeking emotion. What does Saturn's slowness feel like tonight? What mood does Jupiter cast over the marketplace? These are not just heavenly bodies. They are personalities. Tonight, the stars are quiet, reserved, observing. They are not warning. They are not celebrating. They are watching. That, in itself, is enough. You remember stories you've heard whispered in alleys, how some babies were named based on the moon's position, how lovers would delay their meetings if the stars blinked wrong, how kings consulted the heavens before war, and sometimes before sleep. Perhaps that's why the astrologers never seemed afraid. They'd already seen how it would end. A man nearby is speaking softly to the sky. He's alone, kneeling, his hands open. He speaks not in Sumerian, not in Akkadian, but in something older, a language shaped by breath and heartbeat. Maybe it's prayer, maybe it's memory, Either way, the stars do not interrupt. And then you hear it. Not sound, not music, but rhythm. The rhythm of the night sky, the way the stars shimmer like a pulse, the way constellations appear to drift. The soft, slow echo of the universe breathing in time with your chest. It's hypnotic, and it's ancient. You begin to wonder how many generations lay beneath this same sky, eyes open, hearts full of questions. You wonder how many wishes were made that weren't wishes at all. Just quiet acknowledgements of something bigger, colder, and more eternal than any empire. The stars above Babylon do not judge. They illuminate, they reflect, they wait. And you? You watch them flicker, knowing that they are unchanged. But perhaps you aren't. The city never truly sleeps. Not because of its people, but because of its creatures. Babylon at night is a chorus, not of voices, but of paws, wings, claws, and silent watchers with glowing eyes. To live here after dusk is to share your world with beings who see better in the dark than you ever will. You begin to notice them once you stop looking for them. A cat crosses your path. Not a house cat, not entirely. Slim, deliberate, with fur like smoothed ash. She moves as if the city were made for her. Perhaps it was. Her tail flicks once. She pauses near a lamppost, eyes catching the firelight. Not alarmed, curious, measuring. You've heard stories, everyone has, of cats being the reincarnations of scribes or temple servants. Too clever, too calm to be ordinary. This one seems to agree with the rumor. She disappears under a cart without a sound. You pass an alley and hear the rustle of feathers. Above, a dark shape glides silently across the rooftops. An owl. Its wings catch the torchlight briefly, a flash of bronze and shadow. It lands on a broken pillar and tilts its head, staring at something you cannot see. Its gaze is surgical, ancient. Owls are messengers here, or omens, or maybe just eyes for things that refuse to be seen directly. You do not wave. You do not speak. Owls do not require acknowledgement. They simply are. Near the city wall, a pack of dogs moves together, their bodies long and lean, bred for watching, not cuddling. They trot along the edge of the path, stopping to sniff, to listen. One breaks from the group to lap water from a cracked basin. Another lies down near a closed gate, ears twitching at the smallest sound. These dogs do not bark unless they must. Their silence is more useful than noise. You wonder how many threats were chased away by a growl in the dark that no one heard. How many nights were guarded not by soldiers, but by canines, who asked only for scraps and shade. You approach slowly. One dog lifts its head, blinks once, then returns to its rest. You've been approved. But not every creature here is tame. Scorpions, rats, serpents. They don't need the warmth of day. They thrive in cracks, in corners, in forgotten spaces where breadcrumbs fall and oil pools. You see a scorpion on a windowsill, small, black, slow. It moves like something with time to spare. It has no enemies here. It has no fear. Children are taught to shake their shoes before putting them on, to tap clay jugs before lifting them. The city is alive, and it hides more than it shows. You walk carefully, not out of terror, out of respect. This is not your world. It is borrowed. It is shared. At the river's edge, frogs croak in rhythmic unison. Somewhere deeper in the reeds, something splashes, not large, but fast. Perhaps a turtle, perhaps something older. You remember that fish in some temples were considered sacred. Their movements tracked for omens, their silence interpreted by priests. They carried messages in their gills, perhaps, secrets in their silver scales. You see none tonight, but you feel them, swimming through black water, brushing against time itself. You reach a garden wall. Vines trail along it, heavy with night-blooming flowers. A bee, impossibly, hums past. Lost? Dreaming? Or does it serve a queen who never sleeps? Even insects here seem to follow rules older than language. Each wing beat a verse in a song that only Babylon hears. The wind shifts. You smell fur, earth, decay, life. And in that moment, you understand. The night belongs not to absence, but to presence. Not to silence, but to quieter voices. The creatures of Babylon do not ask for space. They claim it. In footfalls you don't hear. In eyes that blink from shadows. In nests and burrows and perches hidden from human pride. They were here before you. They will be here after. And they do not need your blessing, just your awareness. You might think the people of Babylon were fearless, builders of towers that touched the sky, masters of rivers and stars. But when night fell, even they trembled, not from shadows alone, but from what they believed waited inside them. The dark was never just the absence of light. It was a threshold. And on the other side, there were things that watched. You feel it now. Not danger, not certainty. Just that ancient flicker in the chest. That small voice that says, "Don't look behind you too quickly." In the poorer districts, where torches are few and walls lean too close together, the darkness feels different. Heavy. Personal. Here, mothers whisper charms as they tuck in their children. Not lullabies, but protections. May the breath of Nanshi cover your sleep. May the door hold tight against Lamashtu's hand. These names aren't curses. They're warnings. You've heard of Lamashtu. Everyone has. The demoness of illness, miscarriage, hunger. She moves through alleyways in silence, looking for warmth to steal. And she doesn't knock. Children sleep with amulets tied to their wrists. Little bronze figures shaped like Pazuzu, the demon against demons. Ugly, winged, with claws and a lion's face. Not loved, but useful. The idea was simple. Fight fire with fire. Scare the thing that scares you. Adults wear charms under their clothes too. Bits of lapis lazuli, pieces of burned parchment, knots in threads tied while reciting verses backwards. No one admits they believe in them, but no one takes them off. You pass a door marked with ash, no symbol. Just a smudge, blackened and deliberate. It's protection of a kind. Burned cedar rubbed into the wood. The scent strong enough to keep something out. Or in. You don't ask which. The family behind that door sleeps in one room. They keep water by the bed. Not for thirst, but to splash if the dreams grow too loud. They say some dreams are not your own. You pause at a corner where the shadows gather more densely. The air feels colder, though no wind blows. You're not alone. No footsteps. Just the sensation. In Babylon, people speak carefully about corners. They don't mention them by name. They simply walk wide around them, especially at night. Some say spirits cling to them like dew. Others say corners are where things get stuck. Memories, intentions, half-formed regrets. You walk wide, just in case. The priests don't dismiss these fears. They just rename them. To them, night is a time of thinning. When the border between the living and whatever else there is becomes soft, permeable. That's why they burn incense before sleep. That's why temple doors are sealed after dark with cords and chants. Even the gods, it seems, prefer silence once the sun departs. A woman once told you, over bread and dates, that her brother refused to sleep in the same room twice. He believed the dark remembered where it found you last. He died during the day. Still, no one uses that room anymore. But not all fear was superstition. Sometimes, the dark simply meant danger. Real danger. A missing lamp in a narrow street. A sound that didn't belong. A figure moving with purpose toward a home that was too quiet. Night was when debts were collected, when secrets came to knock, when men who wore gold by day moved like shadows by night. And so, people locked their doors, not with keys, there were few, but with heavy bars, wedged tight. They whispered prayers to gods who might still be listening. And when they didn't believe in the gods, they whispered anyway, just in case. You move through these spaces now, not with fear, but with awareness. The same kind the Babylonians carried in their shoulders, in their breath, in the way they turned their heads slightly, listening for something they couldn't name. The fear wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was just the knowledge that you were not alone. And maybe that's what night really is. Not emptiness, but company you didn't invite. The day belonged to kings, the night to gods. And in Babylon, the space between sunset and sunrise wasn't just a pause. It was a door, one that opened quietly, and only for those who approached it with care. You find yourself in a small courtyard, open to the stars. It smells of ash and honey, clay and something metallic, perhaps blood, dried and old. A single torch flickers near an altar made of smooth stone. It is not grand, it is not clean, but it is holy. Someone knelt here not long ago. You can feel the warmth where their hands rested. Rituals in Babylon were not always public, not always loud. Some were whispered into cracks in the wall. Some were drawn in lines of oil across the chest. Some were offered not with ceremony, but with need. The gods were many. Each had their own hour, their own material, their own mood. Ishtar favored offerings of beauty, combs, dyed cloth, perfume. Marduk accepted silence as easily as sacrifice. Shamash, god of the sun, still listened in darkness. For justice knows no schedule. But at night, most turned to the quieter gods, the ones who dealt in dreams and regrets. You pass a group of women sitting cross-legged around a low fire. Their hands move in sync, braiding wool, grinding seeds, tying knots, each gesture precise, repeated, sacred. They do not speak, but their breath matches. Inhale, knot, exhale, twist, a prayer made of rhythm. Beside them, small bowls hold salt, barley, fragments of dried fig, not for eating, for giving, for balance. A girl adds a feather to her bowl, another, a coin, another, a single curl of hair. Not much, but enough. The gods, they say, don't need wealth, just honesty and timing. Elsewhere, under a fig tree, an old man lights 3 flames in a triangle. He recites a phrase in Sumerian. You don't understand the words, but you feel their shape. Heavy, sacred, like stone dropped in deep water. He places a strip of cloth into the center and watches it burn. Not fast, not slow, just completely. This is not a spell. It is a letting go, perhaps of grief, perhaps of guilt, perhaps of a name. In some corners, the rituals are more physical. A woman bathes herself in river water before lying on a reed mat. Around her, clay figurines face outward. Warriors, lions, winged beings with upraised arms. She does not pray aloud. Her ritual is her stillness. She is preparing to receive a dream. And dreams in Babylon are not random. They are messages, encoded, interpretable. The gods do not speak directly, but they do speak. And if you know how to listen, or pay someone who does, you may understand what they want, or who they miss. The temples, too, are awake. Not all of them, but some. A priest walks in circles, scattering crushed rose petals from a shallow bowl. With each step, he hums, low, steady, beneath his breath. He stops at a threshold, whispers something to the door, then waits. Sometimes the ritual is not about doing. It's about being done to. You climb a stairwell lined with lit torches. At the top, a woman paints symbols on a wall, slow, looping marks in red and black. She does not speak, but each stroke seems deliberate. She dips her fingers in ash, presses her palm to the center, then bows. When she rises, the wall seems warmer, and the night quieter. Ofrendas are left everywhere, in bowls on windowsills, in cracks between bricks. At the feet of forgotten statues, not all are noticed, but none are wasted. The gods see what you leave behind, even if no one else does. And sometimes the gift isn't for the gods, it's for yourself, a way to release, a way to remember, a way to sleep. The city rests now, but not in stillness, in reverence. You sit by the temple gate, watching smoke curl into the night. The prayers of 1,000 hands, 1,000 mouths, 1,000 reasons, rising together like mist. Not asking for miracles, just acknowledgement. And in Babylon, that was enough. There are places in a city that learn to keep secrets, corners where the light doesn't quite reach, where stone remembers the weight of quiet footsteps, where time slows, not out of magic, but necessity. In Babylon, the base of the city's great wall was such a place, and after dark, it became a sanctuary for lovers. You walk there now, beneath the shadow of sun-baked bricks, still warm from the day. The wall looms above, massive, unmoving, yet it shelters more than soldiers and stones. It shelters glances, touches, words not meant for daylight. You hear them before you see them. Not voices, but silence. That specific silence that only exists between two people who already know what the other is thinking. A woman leans against the wall, half hidden by a fig tree. Her hair is loose, a small rebellion. Her hands fidget with the hem of her robe, not nervously, but rhythmically, as if she's counting time. A man appears, not hurried, but purposeful. He says nothing. She doesn't speak either. They stand close, not touching, not yet. In Babylon, love is not always spoken. It is known, through breath, through stillness, through the way two shadows bend toward each other without moving. These meetings are not always romantic. Sometimes they are desperate. A young boy and an older man, hands trembling as they pass a rolled piece of parchment. A message? A bribe? A poem? You won't know. But the way they part, quickly, eyes down, tells you it was something too valuable to speak aloud. Elsewhere, two women sit on a low stone bench. One braids the other's hair. It is not flirtation. It is tenderness, a gesture older than writing. One head leans against the other. They do not look at the wall. They look at the sky. This, too, is a kind of love. One not written into laws, but into evenings. And then there are the married, meeting in secret, not with others, but with each other. You see a man remove a ring from his finger before he steps behind a pillar. Moments later, his wife joins him, her sandals in her hands. She laughs, not at anything said, but at the absurdity of needing to hide what is already hers. Perhaps their home is crowded. Perhaps the daylight is too noisy. Perhaps this is the only hour where they remember who they were before obligations arrived. In the hush of the wall's shadow, they kiss like strangers. And then, like soulmates. The wall has cracks filled with dried flowers, pressed between bricks, tucked in cloth, tied with string, tokens of affection, apologies, reminders. You find one now, a small bundle wrapped in faded red linen. Inside, a dried fig, a carved bead, and a note in trembling cuneiform. You can't read it fully. But the symbols for weight and moon are clear. Someone asked to be remembered. Someone, perhaps, still waits. Not all who come here find someone waiting. A boy sits alone, drawing lines in the dirt with a stick. His face is calm, but his foot taps too fast. He looks up every time someone walks by. He is not lost, just hopeful. And sometimes, it's not about another person at all. A woman kneels by the wall, pressing her forehead against the stone. Her lips move, but there is no sound. A prayer? A memory? Or maybe she's remembering the warmth of a shoulder once offered, long ago in this very spot. The wall remembers, even when we forget. Above, the moon watches, indifferent but generous. It gives light enough to see the outline of a face, a hand, a tear wiped quickly before it falls. And beneath that glow, Babylon sighs. It understands love, not as perfection, but as persistence, as touch in silence, as breath shared between two people who know they should be somewhere else, but choose this place anyway. The lovers leave in waves, not together, never together, always apart, always slowly, always glancing back one last time. And the wall, it remains, a keeper of secrets, a witness with no tongue, a diary without a lock. Not everyone walks the night for love. Some walk for profit, some for vengeance, some for silence itself. In the hush of Babylon's alleys, where the lamplight flickers and the guards are fewer than they claim, another kind of rhythm stirs. Sharp, quick, hidden. You hear it now. The subtle tap of leather sandals on stone. The squeak of a turning hinge. A breath held too long, then released too soon. These are not the sounds of rest. They are the sounds of opportunity. A man crouches behind a low wall, wrapped in a cloak that hides not just his body, but his intent. His eyes scan the square, not for beauty, not for awe, but for weakness. He watches the house with the bronze latch. He's counted the steps, timed the torch patrol, knows the dog inside has been fed too well to bark. This is not desperation, it's craft. He doesn't steal for hunger. He steals because the world owes him something, or so he believes. Across the city, another figure moves quickly, not low to the ground, but above it. A woman, no older than 30, runs barefoot along the rooftops, not clumsy, fluid, like wind given form. In her sash, a folded scroll, a seal still wet with clay. She's not a thief, she's a messenger, an informer, a courier of truths someone wanted kept secret, until they weren't. She jumps between buildings, lands without sound, and disappears into a hidden stairwell. Somewhere in the palace, someone will awaken to news that changes everything, and no one will know who delivered it. War's secrets are the second currency of Babylon. Silver buys bread, but information buys power, and power is the only thing that never sleeps. A boy, perhaps 12, stands near the temple wall. His tunic is too clean, his eyes too calm. He leans against a cart, chewing on a piece of reed. You ignore him. That's your mistake. He watches, listens, records, not in writing, but in memory. Later, he will whisper what he saw into the ear of a merchant who pays him in dates. Or into the ear of a priest who pretends not to listen. Or perhaps into no ear at all, just the wind. But it will travel, and it will matter. Somewhere, behind a shuttered window, two nobles meet. One wears the seal of a governor, the other, an envoy from the south. Their voices are low, their words chosen like spices, carefully, sparingly, with intent to preserve and influence. They talk of grain shipments, but mean soldiers. They speak of storms, but mean revolts. They drink wine as if it dulls the weight of their decisions, but their hands do not tremble. Their agreement is not sealed with ink, but with silence. Tomorrow things will shift, and no one will know why. The city's guards know this game, but they play it carefully. A bribe offered is not always accepted. Sometimes it's recorded, and used later when the winds have changed. Power in Babylon is not about strength, it's about timing, and secrets are clocks. You pass an open door, a back room of a tavern, where a man counts coins with one hand and watches the entrance with the other. A knife sits on the table, half hidden beneath a cloth. Not drawn, just ready. Someone enters. Not a friend. Not an enemy. Just business. Words are exchanged. Fast. Clipped. Names not used. Then the visitor leaves. The knife remains untouched. Tonight, at least. There are rumors of tunnels beneath the city. Old aqueducts turned passageways. Places where slaves once escaped, or where spies now hide. You won't find them, unless they want you to. And always, there is the river. The Euphrates carries more than water. It carries messages, evidence, sometimes bodies. A basket floats by, too heavy for its size. You don't look closely. That too is a kind of wisdom. In Babylon, some truths are safer left in motion. You keep walking. The stars above still shine. The torches still burn. The city still breathes. But now, you understand it more fully. Not as a monument, but as a whisper. A system of secrets held together by shadows, breath, and the agreements no one ever admits making. And beneath it all, the quiet truth. Night does not reveal Babylon. It protects it. There's something ancient about the way a city smells at night. Not the stench of refuse or fire. Those belong to the day, when heat lifts everything into the air. At night, Babylon exhales differently. It's a slower breath, deeper, infused with memory. You first notice it as you step into a small square where no one walks. The stones are uneven, and a fountain gurgles lazily in the center. The air here carries the smell of water left too long in stone, mossy, mineral, calming. You inhale, and with it comes the past. The scent of sesame oil clings to everything, doorways, robes, hair. Burned during the day, it lingers at night like the soft echo of a conversation that mattered. It's not sweet, not bitter, just familiar. Farther along, near the bakeries, another layer joins. Bread, but not fresh, not yet. This is the dough left to rise overnight, stretched, flattened, dusted with flour. Its smell is cool, yeasty, alive, a promise, one that will be fulfilled before dawn. You reach a courtyard lined with fig trees. Their fruit hangs low and heavy, bursting with ripeness. A few have fallen, crushed under sandals, releasing a scent that's both sour and sweet, the smell of sugar beginning to turn. It wraps around you. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're no longer a visitor. You're someone who belongs here, who grew up with this scent clinging to their skin each summer, who remembers stealing figs by moonlight, juice sticky on your hands. Scent is memory, and Babylon remembers everything. Whew. Then comes the wind. It moves through the city slowly, not to cool, but to reveal. It carries stories. You smell a brazier somewhere, burning cedar chips. The scent is dry, crisp, sacred. Used in rituals, or to cleanse a home after something bad has happened, or is about to. You can't tell. But the air feels cleaner now, not safer, just clearer. You turn down another street. Someone is boiling dates. The syrupy sweetness floats across the courtyard, mixed with steam and old stone. It's almost too much. Almost. But then it fades, just as you begin to crave it. That's how midnight works. It gives, then it takes away. Another wind blows in from the river, cooler, wetter. It smells of silt and fish, of oars dragged across shallow banks, of reeds bending and returning, a working wind. It doesn't carry mystery, it carries labor. Somewhere nearby, someone is washing clothes in silence. You can hear the slap of fabric against stone, the swirl of water. You smell soap made from animal fat and herbs. You smell effort. You smell care. You pause beneath a window where herbs hang in bundles, thyme, mint, garlic. The wind moves them gently, and each shift brings a different note. Sharp, then green, then soft. It's like walking through someone's memory of dinner. You don't see the face behind the curtain, but you feel her presence. A woman trimming the herbs earlier that day, setting them to dry before the night took the heat. She prepared this space, not for guests, for the wind. You continue walking, and suddenly the smell changes. Smoke, but not danger, not fire. This is a controlled smoke, perhaps incense, perhaps oil spilled and relit. It's heavy, clings to your skin, makes your throat tighten just slightly. A reminder that not all things in Babylon are meant to soothe. Some are meant to stir, to wake something. The final scent is the rarest. Rain, not real rain, just the faintest whisper of moisture in the air, as if the sky considered it, as if clouds passed high above and thought better of it. But the earth noticed and rose to meet it. Dust warmed all day, now cools, and in that cooling it releases something primal. Not dirty, not clean, just Babylon. You sit now on a low step, letting the wind curl around you. The scents layer and twist: bread, herbs, oil, water, smoke, figs, cedar. Each one a sentence in a language your body knows better than your tongue. And together they say, "You are here. You are real. This night remembers you." Some minds resist the lull of night. Even when the city sleeps, when the torches burn low and the dogs curl against stone walls, there are still those who stay awake, not from fear, not from unrest, but from the quiet insistence of thoughts that must be shaped into words. The scribes of Babylon. You find one now, not in a temple or palace, but in a small upper room above a merchant's house, where the window faces a moonlit courtyard, and the only sound is the slow scratch of stylus on clay. He does not look up. His eyes are steady. His hand moves with the rhythm of someone copying something not just for the record, but for permanence. You step softly. You do not wish to disturb the ritual. He writes with care, not speed. A contract, perhaps. A prayer. A list of livestock exchanged for barley. Or maybe a dream. In Babylon, dreams were more than sleep's residue. They were coded messages from the gods, fragments of truth too large to arrive all at once. The scribes recorded them carefully, symbols for fire, for teeth, for water rising beyond its bounds. They wrote not just what was said, but how it was said, what time the dream occurred, where the sleeper lay, what the air smelled like. These details mattered, because dreams mattered. The scribe dips his stylus again. This time the tablet he carves into is thinner, more refined, not for trade or market use, for memory. You glimpse a line, a name, followed by the symbol for departure. This is not business. This is grief. Perhaps someone has died, or left, or disappeared. He's writing not to inform, but to preserve, to keep that person alive in the one way Babylon truly respected, through cuneiform. His room is small. Books made of clay tablets line the shelves, none larger than a hand, each one catalogued in rows, marked with ink symbols on the edges. He knows where each one lives, which ones contain dreams, which ones carry debts, which ones are too old to trust, but too precious to discard. You see a candle burned halfway down, its wax pooling like a sleeping eye. On the table beside it, a small bowl of water, a cloth, a shard of glass, used perhaps to trim the clay or clear mistakes. He never seems to stop, only slows. Even his yawns are methodical. The scribes were not priests, but they were something adjacent. Translators of the invisible. They recorded celestial alignments, copied royal decrees, sketched maps for travelers and spells for childbirth, and all of it at night, because night was when words softened, when distractions faded, when meaning came more willingly. You look around the room. There's another scribe across the alley, visible through an open window, also awake, also writing. Their lamps flicker in strange sync. Perhaps they're both copying the same edict, or the same line of poetry. You imagine a network of them, across the city, bent over clay and reed, preserving the empire one symbol at a time. An army of insomniacs, but not alone. They share the same quiet, the same scratches and sighs, the same ink-stained fingers, the same devotion. The scribe before you pauses, sets his stylus down, closes his eyes, not to sleep, but to remember, and when he opens them, he reaches for a blank tablet. This one is for something different, a thought of his own. A note about the moon, a line he heard in passing from a vendor with a sad smile. He writes slowly, deliberately, because this tablet won't go to the palace. It will stay with him. And maybe, one day, someone will find it and understand. You leave him there, surrounded by symbols that outlive names. A man carving meaning from silence. A city held together by words no one sees being written. A Babylon that only truly breathes when someone is awake enough to listen. Not all parts of Babylon shine equally. For every courtyard lined with flowers, there is a back alley filled with broken pottery and smoke. For every room where dreams are written, there is another where sleep is stolen by hunger or noise. You walk now through one of those quieter districts, not by design, but by neglect. The lamps here are fewer, the walls are closer. The air carries the scent of ash, wet cloth, and something sour. Perhaps spoiled grain, perhaps the breath of too many bodies sharing too little space. This is not a place the nobles visit, not unless they must. You pass a house where the door is open. Inside, a woman rocks a baby whose cries have worn thin. More whimper than voice now. Her eyes are dry, not because she isn't sad, but because there's no energy left to weep. A small lamp flickers beside her. Its flame is weak. She feeds it the last drops of oil with a steady hand, knowing there will be none tomorrow. But tonight, the light must last until the child sleeps. That is the only rule. Nearby, a group of boys sit on the ground, passing a cracked board between them, a game scratched into the wood. They laugh, but it's too sharp, too fast. Their feet are bare, their ribs visible. One of them wears a bracelet made of reed, a charm. His mother gave it to him to ward off disease. You wonder if he believes in it. You wonder if she does. The poor of Babylon work during the day, but they endure the night, not because they want to, but because there is no choice. They cannot afford temple protection, or astrologers to decode their dreams, or priests to intercede on their behalf. They have other rituals. They sleep in groups for warmth. They place salt under their mats. They mark the doorway with soot from the cooking fire, not because they think it will stop evil, but because it gives them something to do. Action is a form of hope, even when it doesn't work. You pass a man lying on the steps of an unused warehouse. He is not dead, but he is not fully awake. His mouth moves. A prayer, a curse, a memory. He might have been a soldier once, or a craftsman, or a father. Now, he is simply someone the night has not yet taken. He holds a clay shard in one hand. No one knows why. Maybe he does. Maybe it's all he has left. In a nearby alley, a group of women sort through discarded cloth. They say nothing to you. One of them hums, but it's tuneless, not for joy, just for rhythm. Their fingers are fast. They know how to spot value in what others leave behind. That is their skill, and Babylon does not reward it, but it also cannot function without it. Above you, on a balcony with no railing, an old man sits alone. He holds a flute. He does not play it. He simply watches the street, as if waiting for something to return. A song, a friend, a version of himself. The night wraps him gently, as if it remembers who he was, even if no one else does. Poverty in Babylon is not hidden. It is present, woven into the fabric of the city, like a thread no one can cut, but everyone pretends not to see. The palaces rise because others kneel. The lamps burn bright because others walk in dark. And still, there is dignity here. Not the kind that demands attention, the kind that survives in silence. A child sleeps on a woven mat beside a doorway. He clutches a stone. Not carved, not marked. Just a stone. It is cool in his hand. And in his dream, perhaps, it is something more. A gem. A coin. A home. You pass through the last stretch of this forgotten quarter. The torch you carry sputters, then steadies. You wonder how many lives flicker like that. A moment of brightness, a hesitation, then the quiet resolve to keep burning, even if no one is watching. There were nights in Babylon when no one was expected to sleep, when the drums began at twilight and didn't stop until the sun had touched the ziggurate's highest stone, when oil lamps flickered like stars fallen to earth and the streets pulsed not with footsteps, but with celebration. You arrive on such a night. And even before the music reaches you, the air tells you something is different. It smells not of silence or fear, but of spice and sweat and expectation. Tonight, Babylon is not watching, it is dancing. The festival spills into every corner. Children run barefoot with painted faces, strings of copper beads bouncing against their necks. Women swirl in loose dresses, dyed in impossible colours, their laughter rising like incense. Old men lift their hands, clapping to rhythms older than they are, rhythms their fathers heard, and their fathers before them. You can't tell where the music comes from. It seems to pour from the ground, from the bricks, from the mouths of people who haven't sung in years, but remember how tonight. No two festivals were the same. Some honoured Ishtar, goddess of love, of war, of contradictions. Her processions wound through the streets in slow spirals, with dancers carrying mirrored plates and boys scattering flower petals. They moved like the moon's reflection on water, never still, never fully knowable. Others honoured Tammuz, the dying god, mourned and reborn every season. His festivals were half lament, half joy. People cried as they danced, or danced as they cried. You see it now. A group of women in blue veils, swaying in a circle, each carrying a clay bowl filled with water. As they move, the water spills in streaks down their arms, onto the ground, into the dust. It's not waste, it's offering, it's memory made visible. In the palace square, fire eaters perform, not for coin, for wonder. The crowd roars with each flame swallowed, each breath of light. Children squeal, lovers lean closer, strangers smile at one another like friends. It is for once safe to be unguarded. That is the real miracle. Vendors roam with baskets of figs dipped in honey, skewers of roasted lamb, cups of fermented milk. Everything is shared. Nothing is counted. A woman hands you a folded cake wrapped in a fig leaf. You take it. No words exchanged. No need. In the temple courtyard, drums begin. Deep, slow, patient. The kind of sound that doesn't enter your ears but your ribs. Dancers arrive barefoot. They wear bells at their ankles and charcoal around their eyes. They move in unison, then chaos, then unison again. Their shadows flicker against the temple walls like forgotten gods remembering how to move. One dancer spins with her eyes closed. Another lifts her arms to the stars and doesn't bring them down. You don't know what the dance means, but you feel it. That's enough. Someone pulls you into a circle. Hands press against your back, your arms, your shoulder. You stumble, then sway, then find the beat. You laugh, not because anything's funny, but because your body remembered something before your mind did. That's what the festivals are for, not forgetting. Remembering differently. Later near the river, the celebrations slow. People sit in groups, legs crossed, faces shining with sweat and contentment. Musicians play softer now, flutes, lutes, something that sounds like humming wind through reeds. A boy recites a poem. Something about stars and salt in a lost earring. Everyone listens, even the river. A woman nearby offers you a sip of something strong and unfamiliar. It burns, but gently. She says nothing. You thank her anyway. She smiles. Not because she expected gratitude, but because tonight, everything is given freely, especially joy. The sun begins to tease the edges of the sky, a faint blush behind the rooftops. And still, no one moves to sleep. Not yet. Not while the fires still burn. Not while the drummer's hands still remember the rhythm. Not while the gods are listening. You sit by the water's edge as the last candle flickers out. Someone nearby begins to sing, softly, slowly. It is a song with no lyrics, just breath, just memory, just night, unfolding its last note like a petal just before the bloom. Not all views of Babylon are from its streets. Sometimes to truly understand a place, you must rise above it. Step away from its corners and markets, its voices and smells, and see it as the stars do. Whole, breathing, woven. You climb a narrow staircase now, one that curls around a tower built of mud brick and age. Each step is worn slightly at the center, a sign of countless feet before yours. The climb is not difficult, but it is quiet, almost sacred, as if even your breath must slow to match the pace of stone. At the top, the city unfolds, not in brilliance, but in dim golds, scattered like forgotten treasure across a vast rug of shadow. Torches still flicker along the palace walls. A few rooftop fires burn in clay pits. The river reflects the moon in long, uncertain lines. It is not dazzling. It is honest. Babylon, after midnight, is not a city showing off. It is a city at rest, and that somehow is more beautiful. From here, you can trace the roads like veins. The wide central avenue, lined with lion tiles and ceremony, now almost empty. The side streets where laughter lingers in dust. The alleys where cats slip between worlds. Everything has its place. Everything has its rhythm. You see the ziggurat, of course, its silhouette unmistakable, tiered against the stars. The flame at its peak burns steadily, a single eye that neither sleeps nor blinks. It doesn't dominate the skyline. It completes it. Like a heart completes a body, not by rising above it, but by pulsing within it. The rooftops below you are varied, some smooth, swept and bare, others cluttered with pots, drying herbs, bedding left out to catch the night air. One has a man lying flat on his back, arms spread wide, speaking to the stars. You can't hear his words, but somehow you understand them. In another direction, the gardens of the rich are visible, not lush under this light, but dark patches shaped by walls and water channels. You imagine the smell of jasmine, the sound of frogs, the whisper of silks. But from here, the wealth is flattened. The height doesn't erase it, it humbles it. No one is rich from this distance, just small. Just part of the story. Even the temples seem quieter now, their columns less rigid, their shadows longer. The statues inside, massive in daylight, now feel almost soft. Perhaps even the gods need to breathe when no one is watching. The wind changes. It brushes your skin with desert coolness, not cold, not biting, just real. A reminder that beyond these walls lies sand, and time, and silence that has never heard a city speak. But here, now, Babylon hums gently. A low, pulsing note of existence, of continuation, of presence. You let your eyes drift across the skyline, the towers, the domes, the rows of homes that look, from this height, like boxes placed carefully by a child too curious to stop. You think about the people inside them, a baker still kneading, a child dreaming of fish, a woman pressing her fingers to her lips in a farewell no one sees. The city is not asleep, it is inhaling. And from here, You can almost hear its lungs. You sit. Let your legs dangle over the edge. The stone beneath you is warm from the sun's memory. And above, the sky opens wider than you remembered. Stars drift. Clouds thread. And you, for a moment, are not a visitor. You are a witness. A rooftop poet without need of words. A soul tracing the outline of a city that knew how to live even in its quietest hour. There's a moment in every night, just one, when the city holds its breath. It's not dawn yet. The stars still shine, though they seem to hesitate now, unsure of their place. The torches flicker lower, the wind quiets, and in that brief stillness, Babylon becomes something else entirely. Not sleeping, not waking, just suspended. You find yourself walking slowly now. Not because you're tired, but because everything around you feels delicate, like the whole world might shatter if you move too quickly. The streets are nearly empty, not from absence, but from retreat. The last vendors have packed away their goods. A broom leans against a doorway. A cup rests on a windowsill, half full or half forgotten. A dog yawns near a stairwell, stretches, and curls into a tighter ball. The city is folding in on itself. And then you hear it. The first sound of day, a low chime. Not loud, not urgent, just the soft note of metal against metal. A temple bell, calling no one in particular. Not yet. It's just a whisper, a warning to the shadows that their time is ending. You pass a courtyard where the braziers have gone out. Smoke still curls upward in thin lines, fading before it reaches the rafters. A woman sweeps quietly, not to clean, but to soothe the stones, to wake them gently, to let them know the sun is near. You see the river, always awake, always moving. But even it feels slower now. The ripples softer, the reflections stretched. A single boat floats midstream, unmanned, swaying as if dreaming. The scent of the water is sharper in the cool. Clay, salt, a hint of fish. This is when the fishermen rise. But not yet. There's still time to listen. Somewhere, a rooster crows, but no one answers. Not yet. Even the animals wait for certainty. A temple gate creaks open, just slightly. Inside, a priest lights a single flame. He moves slowly, as if afraid of startling the gods. His hands shake, but not from age, from reverence. This is the hour when the boundary between sacred and mundane is thinnest. A careless breath might undo a blessing. A man in plain robes sits on a bench, rubbing oil into his hands. He's preparing for labor, not out of eagerness, but habit. His cart waits beside him, empty. He hums something, a melody without words, a tune his mother used, or maybe one he made up and forgot the name of. Either way, it fills the space better than silence. This hour belongs to no one. It is too soft for the gods, too quiet for the kings, too fragile for the poets, and yet it holds everything. You sit at the edge of a fountain. The water barely moves. You watch the reflection of the sky, still dark, but tinged now with the gentlest blue. Not colour, memory of colour, a suggestion, a promise. And then, from somewhere deep within the temple, a second chime, stronger, more certain. And that is the cue. You see it in the birds that take flight, in the men lifting sacks onto shoulders, in the sudden collective inhale of a city that, for one final breath, was the night, and now must become the day. You stand. The stars fade, the sky brightens, and Babylon, faithful as ever, begins again. Not with fanfare, but with footsteps. Dawn may have arrived, but the night doesn't disappear. It lingers, not in darkness, but in memory, in the scent of burnt oil on your robe, in the rhythm of your steps that still match the silence. In the strange way your heart hesitates before facing the sun, some parts of the night stay with you, forever. You walk now through a part of the city that feels older, not ancient by date, but by feeling. The bricks here are uneven. The mortar crumbles slightly at the corners. Names scratched into walls have faded. Yet somehow, this place speaks more loudly than any palace or gate. This is where the echoes live, and they are never quiet. You pass a shuttered home. No one has entered in months, perhaps years. A child once died here, they say, or a dream, but someone still leaves bread at the doorstep each week. Always the same shape, always the same time. No one claims it, no one questions it. Some griefs become rituals, and rituals become history. Further down, you find a wall, half collapsed, covered in vines. Behind it, a courtyard garden once sacred to Nabu, the god of wisdom. Now, the altar is broken. But someone has carved fresh symbols into a nearby stone. Not cuneiform, just scratches, lines, marks that look like thought, memory trying to speak without a language. A boy sits nearby, carving a piece of wood with a dull blade. He hums softly. You ask what he's making. He shrugs, then says, something someone might find later. That's all, and that's enough. You come to a bridge that crosses a dry canal. Once, it carried water. Now, it carries footsteps and the weight of what isn't said. People pass quickly here, but you stop, because etched into the stones beneath your feet are dozens of names, some full, some only initials, some just shapes, spirals, eyes, stars, marks left not to be remembered, marks left because someone needed to leave them. The city changes, but the night remembers. You feel it in the way certain doors creak the same way every morning, in the way the birds pause before singing, in the way your body, even now, leans slightly toward the silence, reluctant to let go. It's not nostalgia, it's recognition. You think of the taberna in the alley, the woman's laugh that echoed like a story. You wonder where she is now. You wonder if the place will feel the same tonight. It won't, but the echo will. You think of the lovers by the wall, the child with the bracelet, the priest at the ziggurat, lighting fire to speak to stars. They were all part of the same rhythm. And now, they are part of you. You pass a doorway marked with clay symbols, old protection spells, barely legible. The family is long gone, but the symbols remain, like fingerprints on the soul of the street. Babylon never forgets. It just changes shape. A man sweeps his doorstep. He's humming an old song, the same one you heard during the festival. You pause. He looks at you, nods, doesn't stop sweeping, as if to say, we're still here, even if everything changes, even if the towers fall, even if the tablets crack and the gods go silent, we're still here. And so are the stories. You walk on. The sun is higher now, shadows shorter, but in your step, there is something slower, more deliberate, as if part of you remains behind, tucked between walls and water and dust. A memory waiting to echo again. The night is over, but it is not gone. And now you find yourself not in a street, nor temple, nor garden, but somewhere softer, somewhere quieter, a space between breath and memory, between all that has passed and all that remains. You are no longer walking through Babylon. You are resting inside it. The story has slowed. The torches have gone out, but the flame, the one that matters, is still with you. History, as we're told, is made by kings, written by scribes, enshrined in tablets and statues and ziggurats. But tonight, we saw something different. We walked not with kings, but with bakers and children, dancers and thieves, mothers and scribes. We listened to cats, to wind, to footsteps across stone. We lit no fires of war, We counted no battles. We celebrated no conquests. And yet, didn't we find something just as enduring? Sleep often feels like a surrender. But here, after walking through this ancient dusk, it feels more like a return to a place you've never been, yet always known. A city not of conquest, but of continuity, of people who, like you, once struggled to rest, who feared the dark and worshipped the stars, who whispered names into empty rooms, hoping someone, something, would hear. And maybe they did, because you're here, listening, breathing, remembering. You think of the scribe at his tablet, the priest lighting his flame, the woman pressing her hand to a stone and remembering a love that never arrived. You think of the bread shared, the songs repeated, the wind that carried the scent of figs and sweat and sleep. They are not gone. They live here still, not in textbooks, but in the rhythm of the night and in you. Perhaps that's what sleep really is. A return to history, to the stories we carry not in books, but in our bodies. The ones we remember when all else quiets, when the lights dim, when the eyes close. So rest now. Let the city fade, not vanish, just soften. Let the Euphrates hush. Let the clay cool. Let the footsteps stop. Let the stars look down and know you've seen them too. You are part of the story now, not as a hero, but as a witness, and sometimes that's more sacred, more enduring, more human. Sleep well, traveller. May the gods be quiet. May the night be long. May the story hold you until morning.